So as the title says, this today is all about hacks to get rent to rents. Now, I coach budding property investors, and time again, rent to rent is often a great way of starting in property if perhaps you haven't got a big pot of cash to go and buy properties, or if you want to get a cash flow quickly to perhaps replace your income. There can be a whole host of reasons why you might want to do rent to rent. And that is actually where I started off my career in property. So I've got a few sort of tips and hints and hacks which which I used myself, and which also people have used to go off and successfully find their own rents and really get going on that journey. So please, guys, if you could all do me a big favor and ping 6 people that you feel this might be useful for them, it might help them, then please do ping them over. I'm just going to do that now, see if I can get a load of people who this might help, and then we can get going. It's a bit like somebody mentioned the poking on Facebook the other day. I was never much of a poker, but yeah, I feel it's a bit like that. We're here, isn't it? I am also, by the way, guys, live on Facebook, and this will go, and that's under my Facebook page, which is Emma Howitt Pure Abodes, and this will also be saved onto my YouTube channel, which again is Emma Howitt Pure Abodes, and I'm hoping that the YouTube channel is linked at the top. So if I've got that link wrong, then yeah, that would be great. So oh my goodness, we've got questions coming in already. So if it's okay, Stephanie, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the content, and then we'll come and answer your questions. So that would be fantastic. But yeah, please, guys, do put any questions that you have down there. So yeah, straight into it. So again, just to reiterate that this is, hacks to get rents to rent. So why would people do rent to rent? So I'd already mentioned myself, I didn't have a huge pot of cash. In fact, I really had no money. I'd had a corporate career, and then I'd had my gorgeous boys, twin boys, and I really wanted to spend time with them. So I started up my own businesses, and it was businesses, and some of them were really successful. In fact, one of them, I won a national award, but it literally made no money. So I was really at the stage where I'd had this really successful career, and I was literally running out of money. Sometimes, couldn't even pay for, one of my businesses with cakes, couldn't even pay for the ingredients. It was just not a nice way of being. So at which stage I thought, I've just got to change this. So that's where I came across property. I started off with Touchstone, and rent-to-rent serviced accommodation seemed a great option for me. And that's exactly what I jumped in with. And I was able to literally, with none of my own money, start up my business. And I actually took out a sort of a business loan and was able to get going and do that. It can also be speed. So when you're going to buy properties, it can take a long time, can't it? I mean, how many properties do you think you can buy in a year? I mean, with, the surveyors being, conveyancers taking a long time, there's so many things that hold you back along the way. So if you wanted to, for instance, replace your income. So I get a lot of people that are desperate to get out of their jobs. So if that's the case, then we really want to get that income covered as quickly as possible. And rent to rents can be a quick way, not always, but can be. And one of those things is that if you are, if you get one, then quite often, I know with me, I got my first one with one agent, and then I got the next 5 with the same agent. So it can really start being a roller coaster once you get that first one. And also, I tell you another reason, looking back on my journey, what rent to rent gave me, which I certainly didn't think about initially, was confidence. Now, I know when I was going out there, I'd spent all this money on a course. I felt that there was nothing else. I'd exhausted a corporate career. I'd exhausted doing general businesses that I'd set up, and they hadn't worked financially, that this was literally my last chance. So I remember kind of just going for it quite blindly, going for absolutely everything. I think what it then gave me was that sort of dogged determination. And then once I started to get successful, when I look back on that and my journey and what I got over the number of years that I ran a rent-to-rent business, was that it suddenly gave me real confidence in being an expert in that industry. So being an expert in service accommodation, being an expert in, being able to do rent to rent. And then I started being able to transfer those skills into other areas of property. So that was really good. So for me, rent to rent has multiple benefits. So I know people who have many, many properties already, but then a landlord might say to them, oh, I really like that service accommodation you're doing, but I just don't want to do it. And and then they start having that conversation, and then they say, oh, well, would you run mine for me? And then you can do potentially a rent to rent or even a management agreement, whichever way it works for you. But I know people that grow their portfolio like that as well. And it is great because you're not stuck with that property. Now, the only caveat I will say, which is really, really important, is that this should never be just a test. I hear people saying, oh, yeah, I'll just give it a go with rent to rent and see if it works. Now, I think that is a real misnomer. Please do not do that. What we're going to walk through here today is some of the due diligence that you must do before jumping into any kind of business, and especially with a rent-to-rent serviced accommodation. And this can also cover, by the way, rent-to-rent HMO, but I'm really specifically talking about rent-to-rent serviced accommodation. It shouldn't just be a guess. It shouldn't be a like, oh, I hope it works. It should literally be something that you have done your due diligence, like you would with any business. There's no business, is there, where somebody said, oh, I thought I'd just give it a go. I'm going to spend all this money. I'm just going to give it a go. You don't do that, do you? You check the demand, you check what kind of products, what your competitors are doing. You do a whole host of of due diligence to make sure that what you're doing is going to work. Now, it's never 100%, is it? But honestly, you want to be so sure. I know when I first started out and I did all my due diligence, I thought, well, you know what, with everything that I've done my research on, it has got to work. And I'm sure I can make it work, because they had so many benefits, so many things going for it, that it was really going to work. So that's where I started. Just taking a drink. Then another question that may come up today, so I'm just going to raise it now, is we potentially, and I think fairly definitely, are going to get a new planning use class, which is potentially going to be C6. Or C5. Oh, what is it? Oh, it's C5, I think, isn't it? Sorry, C5. So yeah, exactly, Rafi. I was getting carried away there doing the next number up. So what this will be is literally a use class for, short-term rental, people know it as Airbnb, holiday lets, and then we throw in the word serviced accommodation, which really confuses the thing, because inherently serviced accommodation is actually C1, and that would be guest houses and hotels, whereas generally what most of us are doing is short-term rental, sort of Airbnb type things, and that is in properties that are C3. So that's the normal residential properties that we all live in. So there's going to be this new C5, and with that, is there going to be massive changes? Is it going to cause a whole host of issues? There's going to be some ripples, absolutely. But anyone who has been around and in property for a while will know that HMOs had a new planning use class. It had licensing come in. So a whole host of things changed that part and that strategy within property. Are there now no HMOs? Are there now nobody running those? Are there now nobody doing rent-to-rent HMOs? Of course not. It's just a massively, massively successful strategy. It's also really high cash flowing. It's a great one, especially at the moment. There's really high rents and massive, massive demand. Now, are there other issues? Of course, in any business, there's quite a lot of high costs potentially involved in that, but these are all things that we can work in our business to mitigate, to ensure that we provide a really great product. So great rooms for our guests, for our tenants in HMOs, and also, still ensure that you, as the provider, make a good amount of money. So yeah, should we be frightened with the C5? I would say no, but I would also say it's a great opportunity at the moment to go out and to get as many properties as you can, because generally you will get something called grandfather rights. Okay, and grandfather rights are really fantastic. It means if you're already running it, they may say you have to run it for a certain amount of time, but generally they don't tend to bring in a rule instantly on that day. They'll give people, a bit of time to say, look, these are the rules that we're bringing in, and this is how long it is until it starts. And generally those who are already doing it before this particular date will get grandfather rights. So that's great. That usually helps us there. And what I really liked about a lot of the stuff that I've read about with the C5 is that it should be really easy, and it sounds like it's easy to go from C5 back to C3. So as long as, inherently it still looks like a house, doesn't it? It's not like an HMO where you've suddenly added multiple rooms and all the rooms are en suites, and you can't really put that back to a normal house. In general, with short-term rental, the house is still a house, isn't it? That's what we want. That's what we promote. That's what we really like. And our clients really love that, because that's, it's not just a hotel where there's very few sort of amenities immediately accessible, which is what you have in a C3 property. So, yeah, so I would say, let's not worry too much about it. Like all these things, when COVID suddenly cropped up, what do? We all put our heads together and we worked out a way of, finding solutions. So we're always going to find solutions. So do you think you should not do this strategy? Absolutely not. I still think you should carry on. Obviously be aware, keep reading up, keep, coming into forums like this where we can all have discussions about it. But absolutely, I would suggest kind of, just keeping aware of it and moving forward. Sorry, I'm going to have to keep breaking to have a drink. I haven't got anyone else to speak. Okay, so what is the first things first? Well, for me, if you want to do rent-to-rent service accommodation, the number one thing to do is to get educated. Now, there is so much out there on YouTube, there's loads out there on Facebook, there's loads out there on podcasts, there's all of these things out there. And I think they are absolutely great, but the main issue is you don't know what you don't know. And that was absolutely huge for me before I started in property education. And I have spent thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands on education. And it really is, initially, it just seemed the most ridiculous amount of money and didn't seem worth it. But looking back on it and looking at what the returns have been, it was literally the best investment I've ever made. So for me, it is going out there, and I don't sell courses, by the way, so I'm not selling a course, don't worry. But I do really feel that it's really key to get some kind of training. And if you can, with that, support, because what happens is you might do a course and then you go and speak to the first agent or something crops up and you think, that was not specifically answered in the course, because of course no course can answer absolutely everything that happens on the ground. So you really, again, want that support network, people that can help you, coaches or mentors who can answer your questions. And it's really nice to be in a group of other people who are also starting out, and others who are maybe just a few steps ahead, others who are really far ahead, so that then you've got inspiration of where you can go moving forward. So I'd definitely say go and get educated. And the main reason with that is there's a lot of legalities that you can also get wrong in serviced accommodation. I've seen quite a few very scary places where the people aren't educated. They've just literally thought, oh, I'll just put my properties into holiday lets. Oh my gosh, they just do so many things wrong, and some of them are properly illegal and dangerous. So yeah, definitely, go out there and get educated. Now, on top of that, obviously you want to continue to get educated. So one of the things I mentioned earlier is that I became a real kind of expert. Well, I mean, there's still loads to learn, but I literally went out of my way. I listened to, there's one particular one, I'll talk about it later, but there were like 80 podcasts and I listened to them 5 times. I just wanted to absorb and to get as much information as I possibly could. So definitely go out there, learn as much as you can. And yeah, go for that, I would say. And then the next thing is where to choose, because then what people do is it's like, oh, I'm going to do rent-to-rent service accommodation, and you're like, oh, where are you going to do that? I'm just going to do it in Kent, or I'm going to do that in Suffolk, or I'm going to do that in, I don't know, Bedfordshire, wherever. My geography is not that great. And then it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, that's a pretty big area to be doing serviced accommodation. One, the economies of scale, if you're going from the top of a county to the bottom of the county, is just not going to work for you. And 2, you're not going to have any build up of what I call creating your own luck. Okay, now, just as a caveat, I absolutely don't think there's such a thing as luck. And in fact, I'm reading a great book at the moment it's all about how to be lucky, with inverted commas around lucky. I truly, truly believe that through, various specific things that you choose to do, you choose to think, you choose to act, creates this so-called luck in inverted commas. So for me, it's all about finding and I call it your gold mine area. And in fact, I'm just going to share the link to where is it? To my gold mine area. And I'm actually literally in the final stages of writing the book to support this as well. So this is really a basic thing, and it needs, more padding around it. And that's why I decided to write a book. So I've nearly done that, which is exciting. So I'll let you know when that's out. So it's all about finding your gold mine area. And this is so key. I can't express how important it is, because you might, and what I talk about is looking at where you live and within 45 minutes to an hour. Now, I know some of you might be in London. Now, obviously, if you're in central London, this is going to be a little bit more difficult. But anyone who's slightly around the edges, I live on the coast, so I don't have a 180-degree choice of where I'm going to go. I a 360 degree, sorry. I only have a 180 degree. And it's the same with those Londoners. You can definitely do serviced accommodation in London, but it is a bit more complex. You have the 90-day rule where you're only allowed to do short-term lets for 90 days in the year. For the rest of the year, they basically have to be longer than 90 days. Now, it still can be short-term rental, but it would have to be long bookings over 90 days. And I don't particularly want to do that because it just adds a whole host of more complexities. But as I say, lots of people really successfully do that. So if you want to do that and you're happy to work with it, go for it. But for those of you who are, in London and thinking, oh, I can't do anything, or it's all home counties, it's really hard. Rubbish. I know people that are successfully running serviced accommodation in all places, all around London. Okay, so literally put an X marks the spot, 45 minutes, and look at all those towns that might have opportunities. Now, what often people look at is they're like, oh, well, that place is not somewhere where I'd go on holiday. Literally stop, guys. You can run a purely leisure serviced accommodation business. However, it is leisure. Okay, so it will be very, very seasonal generally. There are a few anomalies, but pretty much generally very, very seasonal. So I like to have a business where I can sleep at night. I don't want to be there going, have I got any bookings? And I don't know if anyone else, but this year has been quite a lot of late bookings, especially in the leisure market. So that is a really uncomfortable position to be in, and you definitely want to be, so like we're really prepped up so that we can have enough money, because we are a bit leisure in our area where I've got my hotel. So we are going into the winter with enough money that if we had 0 bookings, then we'd be fine. Obviously, we're not going to have 0 bookings, but it means that every kind of contractor booking that we can get in there is an absolute bonus all over that winter time. And then when you are, so you're looking at these, oh my gosh, I haven't got any electric coming into my computer. Perfect. So when you're looking at these areas, you just basically, rather than looking, is it going to work for, short-term rental, just look at the size of those towns within 45 minutes to an hour's drive of you. And I always look at kind of 120,000 population, but it can be as low as 70,000. But I find that those bigger ones tend to have much more money being ploughed into them. They're really growing. There's lots happening. And those are the ones. Now, if you've already got a place that's 200,000, then, you'd be looking at kind of half that size. So again, you're not going to be doing service accommodation or short-time rental in London. You're going to be looking at a part of it, aren't you? So you're going to find a part where you become that expert, you become known as that person who does it in their area. So that's it. So go through those big, step by step gold mine area, really looking for everything in that area that brings people to that area. Now, I'm not going to go too much into that because I really want to get into these hacks and exactly how we can get money more rent to rents. So the first one I'm going to go into, and for those of you who are following me and watching this afterwards, I am going to bring up a whiteboard, and I'm hoping that everyone will be able to see this. But obviously, for some of you, you can't see this because you are listening on Clubhouse. So what I'm doing is I'm just literally opening, and I call this my 3-page hack. Okay. So what is a 3-page hack? So when you have got your area, somebody has put in here, I can't see all of these, let's say Staines. So Ravi, let's say, let's say Bedford. Okay. So we've got here, you've decided on Bedford. I have no idea, guys. I haven't done my due diligence on Bedford, so I don't know if it works or not. But let's say we're looking at Bedford, and you're now at that stage where you're like, woo, Bedford's the one for me. That's where I'm going. Or Leon wants to do Brighton. So again, I think Brighton is quite big. And also, guys, another part which is huge in my goldmine area is, you have to check that it's not oversaturated. Okay, so that is absolutely huge, and that's utilizing booking.com. Oh, Omar's using Watford. Oh, look at this. We've got so many places. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. But right, so you're ready. You've done the goldmine area. You know it's not oversaturated, and we're ready to go. And you're terrified because you've now got to go and find these rent-to-rent deals, haven't you? And, you've you've done your training, but you're like, what am I going to do? I don't know what to say. Do I tell them that I'm doing rent to rent? Do I not? Do I try and, skirt around the question like a politician? What do I do? What I would highly recommend you do is always tell the truth. Okay. So if somebody says to you, oh, is that rent to rent scheme thing? Go, yeah, absolutely. It's really fantastic, isn't it? So always just think, whatever they say, let's just tell the truth, because otherwise, like me, I got into terrible trouble. The first one I went to see, she said, who's this for? And I said, for me, because it kind of is, isn't it? And then anyway, she was then not very well. She rocked up to the viewing. I started talking about rent to rent. She actually really was quite verbally rude. And it was just the most awful experience. She did apologize to me afterwards, but basically she'd got out of bed thinking that it may be a potential, but the vendor or the person who wanted to let it would not do rent to rent. So, she was pretty cross with me. So anyway, so these 3 pages, what do we do? So the first one, if you imagine just a plain sheet of paper with a line dividing straight from top to bottom, and then a line sort of near the top from left to right. And in the top left quadrant, you're going to put landlord problems. Okay. And then obviously underneath that, you're going to list absolutely all of those landlord problems. So I'm just going to put this in here and see if it works. So landlord problems. Okay, and then obviously underneath, you're just going to put a whole host of things. I mean, we can all think of it. No payments. It might be trashed property. It might be, I mean, it can be absolutely everything. Sorry, my mind's going blank. So I'm aware some of you can't see this. And then on the other top right-hand side, you're going to put how I can solve them. So how I can solve those landlord problems. So they are going to be, you're a business basically, so there's going to be no squatting, is there? If you don't pay the bills, you're going to be out on your ear. You're going to keep it in show home condition. So these are really important things for you just to work through a big long list. I'm not live on YouTube. I'm live on Facebook. On Emma Howitt Pure Abodes. I'm not going to try and share it because I have no idea how to do that. So how I can solve them. So this is a great exercise for everyone to do. We should all be doing this anyway. So what are the landlord problems? So just, if you can't even think of any, just Google it. I mean, there are so many landlord problems. If you've got people that are landlords, ask them, what are the problems that you've had, and just list them. And then how can I solve them? So again, really think through, what are all the things that you can help a landlord? No hassles. You can do everything for them, and they get a guaranteed rent, all of these kind of things. So that's page number 1. Then you'll move on to page number 2. So again, I'm just here going to here we go. So I'm just showing here. So this is our second page, and it's exactly the same. You're going to have a line down the middle, a line across the top, and then we are going to have in the top left-hand corner, letting agent problems. Okay. And that, to be honest, let's be fair, a letting agent's problems could be landlords, couldn't it? But pretty much all similar things. So, trashed properties, issues with tenants, it's just so many things that can go wrong. And then again, on the top right, you are going to put how I can solve them. And again, pretty much similar things. Now, the only thing you want to be really careful with letting agents is nowadays they do put quite a bit of an additional amount of money on any repairs. So if they're going to do a repair for the landlord, they will add on their own charge. Whereas one of the things that I offer to landlords is I'll say, anything up to £100, I will just cover it. Whereas that's not a good thing to say to a letting agent who will be looking after that property and renting it to you, because that's where they make some extra money. So you don't want to be saying that to the letting agent. Okay, and then the third sheet and I pre-prepared this one, is literally a sheet. So you imagine, guys, I've literally got an A4 sheet of paper and I've got 10 circles on it. Okay, so 10 circles. So you've got sheet 1 with landlord problems, how I can solve them. Sheet 2 with letting agent problems, how I can solve them. And sheet 3 has got 10 circles on them. And in each circle, I want you to write a big NO, okay? And put that in every single circle, okay? Now, why do we do that? I don't know if anyone's read Go for No. If you haven't, go and read it. And it's basically that, guess what, guys? You are going to get a whole load of no's. Okay, it's just normal. You've got to expect it. You've got to be excited by it, because initially you're going to be quite rubbish, probably. You're going to be saying the wrong things. You might be really nervous about it. Like me, I got shouted at in my first visit, viewing. I just did everything wrong. And I got a lot of no's. Now, this is just such an amazing thing. So every time you get a no, you just cross it off. I want you to do a little no dance. Oh yeah, I got a no. And that's because, guess what? You're one step nearer to a yes. I know that sounds silly, but it's so good. It is all about this mental agility, isn't it? It's basically persuading ourselves that we can help ourselves and that we are going to get there. Are there hundreds, maybe, yeah, I mean, there'll be thousands of people out in the UK who do rent to rent. Yeah, exactly, Dee. Who do rent to rent, okay? So why can't you? There's no reason whatsoever that you can't, and there's no excuses. You could be too tall, you could be too short, you could have a really strong accent, you could be too thin, too fat. There's no excuses, guys. Every single person and I'm talking about not going it alone. Those of you that have done your learning, that are in a support group, that have done your goldmine area, that have done those first 2 sheets, you are going to get a lot of no's, but you still keep going on here. Just keep going. Okay, so going back to those other 2 sheets, what the main thing that I really like about these is inherently have them to hand before you have any conversations with any landlords or any letting agents, because really what we're looking for is problems. Because if there are no problems, so let's say, for instance, we speak to a landlord and you rock up, or you find him on spare room and you've given him a call, or her, and you said, hi, how is your property? How's it going? And they say, oh, it's absolutely brilliant. I've always had really great tenants, no problem. I keep it in really great condition because I'm always updating it. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. Guess what? It's highly unlikely that my friend Harry took 57 calls before he got his right. There we go, Craig. Absolutely. You can get so many no's before you get a yes, but you've just got to know. So it's a bit like Think and Grow Rich. If you haven't read it, read it. It talks about faith. Okay. Loads and loads of other people have done this. So just have the faith that you will get there. You will get there. But yeah, so what you're looking for are these problems. So as I say, if they don't have any problems, it's highly unlikely that you can help them, because inherently what people need is for us to solve their problems. Okay, so go in, and so when you're talking to them, if they suddenly if you say, oh, this is a beautiful property, let's say you meet them at the place, at their property, and even if it's a rubbish property, never say, oh my goodness, this is the worst property I've ever seen. I can't bear it. I want to leave now. Just try and just, really build rapport, even if you have to say, wow, what a great view of the car park. So nice to be able to see the supermarket, isn't it? Whatever, don't take the mickey, but, try and think of things that will really build that rapport and start talking about, because that particular property with the landlord might be their rubbish, worst property. They might have loads of other amazing properties, or they might have friends that have got properties. So always make sure that you're working on building a fantastic rapport. Sorry, just another drink. So so you say to them, oh, how so a good one is you know, who was the last tenant? I mean, if they say nothing negative about that, then you might want to ask more probing questions, obviously open-ended questions. You know, how did you find it through COVID? That was a bit challenging, wasn't it? And if they say, oh, yeah, I had a nightmare, had some people that really took advantage of the system, they didn't pay, and then they kept paying at the last minute, obviously couldn't get them out, then tried to take them to court with, you know, what, for whatever reason, we've only just got them out, and then they've really trashed the place. So that's why we're just in the process of doing it up. Ka-ching. I mean, that is what you want to hear. You want to help them, yeah? You want to help them find the solution to this. But what we often do is we just sort of blindly have a conversation and kind of hope that something comes up, but we need to actively search for these problems. So if you've got a big, long list of landlord problems or letting agent problems, then you can keep asking these open-ended questions. Now, as I say, if there are no problems, it's probably a no. If there are lots of problems, then that's when you can start talking to them about how you can help them solve that, how you can be the answer to their what has inherently been a nightmare before, and you can really sort of, you know, push that on its way to help them. So that's my 3 pages hack. I think that's a really fantastic one to give you some basis of what to go for. Now, the next 3 ones are what I call my confidence hacks, because inherently, when you're anything like me, I was totally new into the business, totally new into property, and I just felt like an utter fraud. I was basically walking in, pretending that I knew what I was doing, pretending that I was confident. I had a lot of self-doubt. I really thought I worked on my mindset in those days, but there was just no, I had not at all. But what this enabled me to do was think of what ways could I help myself be more confident, because I really just did not feel confident at all, and it was really challenging. So I'm sure there's others of you out there who might feel like that. So these are my 3 confidence hacks. So one of them is going into an estate agent first. So any estate agents that have the estate agent part and the letting agent part, okay? So one of the things I do in my goldmine area is I talk about looking for areas that are what I call in the 4 to 7 bracket. So if you imagine houses on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, you know, the real Bronx, and you might get shot as you walk out your front door. I'm not sure there's many of those in the UK, but anyway. And then 10 is Hollywood Hills. You want to be going for the 4 to 7s, and especially if you're investing and you're actually buying property, the 4 and 5s are fantastic. Edge of the Bronx, really safe still, but a place where not many people want to have as their address because it's kind of dodgy area. So what I always suggest is, how are you going to find that out? So 1, you want to go and ask the estate agents. Now, guys, any of you who are doing rent-to-rent serviced accommodation, do you then at some stage want to buy property? Yes. Okay, so I don't know about anyone else, but for me, my whole thing of doing rent-to-rent serviced accommodation was to build up funds to be able to buy property in the future. So is it unreasonable to go into an estate agent and ask them those questions? I'm looking to invest. I'm looking for the areas that are around 4 to 7. Could you help me? I'm new to the area. And then you can start having a chat. And what I'm going to do with my properties is I'm going to use them as short-term rentals. So basically furnished holiday lets. And you know, chitter chatter, you start making it, yeah, I'm just waiting for some funds to come in, and then I'm really going for it. And you would explain, and from my goldmine area, you'll also know exactly what property you're going for. So you might be going for a 3-bed, a 4-bed house, or you might be going for a 2-bed apartment, but you'll know specifically. And always talk about properties that you are really interested in, not just any property. Any of you who have been to the B&I, there's none of that. You have to be very, very specific. So I'm specifically looking for, let's say, 2-bed apartments in this area of Bedford, and that's what you want. And he'll be backing that up by understanding your 4 to 7 in this 1 to 10 scale of properties in the area. So once you've had this really fantastic chat with the estate agent, what I love to say is then do you know what? This area is just so is really highlighted as such a fantastic area for short-term rental. I'm literally just, you know, setting up my business, but obviously it takes time to purchase properties. So what I'm doing in the meantime to honor the huge number of bookings that I've got that are coming to me, and don't lie in that. So, you know, if you haven't got any bookings coming to you, to say, you know, to be able to honor the bookings that are out there, because if you've done your goldmine area, there are definitely bookings out there. What I'm doing is I'm actually looking at renting properties too. Would you be able to introduce me to your letting agents? Now, for me, this was a total eye-opening. It was like a big breath of relief, because you suddenly had this confidence of going from the estate agents where they treat you really nicely and walking into the letting agent from that direction. So there was a bit more respect, a bit more taking you seriously. Whereas those of you who have walked in the door of the letting agent and gone straight to them, I don't know about you, but some of them can be quite rude, not that friendly and not that nice. Sorry, another drink. And I found it quite soul destroying that even though they knew, I mean, you know, even people that I worked with, I had somebody I was helping her get, you know, rent to rent properties. And by this point, I knew the owner of this particular agent. And I would say to him, you know, your staff treat people really poorly. And he just didn't care. I said, this lady's got money to spend in your estate agency, but again, didn't care. So it's really important to, you know, have a confidence where you can go in and actually come from the estate agent down. So I don't know if anyone's done that, but for me, it made a real step change in giving me that confidence and the way they viewed me when I walked into their offices. And yeah, it was just a total game changer. So if you haven't done that, give that a try, because it's a really good way of really building up your confidence. Okay, so then I'm just going to shut this down here. Then the next one is, how about finding bookings before you've got properties? So this is a great one. So imagine that you go to, for instance, a local development site, and they are building, generally not houses, guys, because houses quite often are built by local developers. So you're wanting to find something that is kind of infrastructure. So it might be an Amazon warehouse, it might be, you know, new roads, it might be a school. So things where, you know, you have to have external people that have got very specific skills. So let's say you go on that development site, and I'm always loving those. So make sure you look at the hoardings, make sure you find out beforehand who is the site manager. If it's a drive-in, you want to be driving in really confident, wind down your window. Oh, hi, can I go and see John Smith, the site manager? You know, I'm just popping in to see John, the site manager. Generally, they'll then whisk you through and you get to go and speak to them. You go and say, hi, John. Oh, great to see you. I provide, I'm providing accommodation locally for contractors coming into town. Do you have contractors coming in from out of town? He'll say, hopefully, yes. And you'll say, fantastic. This is what I offer. Now, you don't have anything yet, but is it okay to, for instance, show my website or somebody else's website that shows serviced accommodation? It just shows really nice properties with beds, with towels, you know, single beds if you're looking at contractors sometimes, and, you know, nice kitchen, and say, you know, the reason we do this is because, and just list a few benefits. You know, they're not stuck in a box room for months on end. They've got everything that they need. They can cook from home. You know, long old list of what the benefits are. Now, quite often they might say, yeah, we do have people coming out of town. they kind of work it for themselves. And it's worth saying, oh, can I leave some leaflets? You know, you can get really cheap leaflets nowadays, and, you know, ask them to put them in their induction room, because everyone has to have an induction, and also the canteen. That's a good one as well. But some people do offer and say, well, look, if you send people to me, I do a bit of a kickback. So some people do that, and they actually give them money if they have long bookings. So again, all of these things, you might want to take them donuts. I know, yeah, a lot of people do that, so that you become really memorable. Now, what happens if on that day the chap says to you, and this has happened, you know what, I have got 6 roofers coming in 3 weeks, and we haven't had a chance to, and they're a group of foreigners, and we need to organize their accommodation, and we haven't had a chance to organize it yet. Can you help me? Da da da. If you knew that you needed to find properties for 6 people, and they were staying, and he said, and they're going to be there for 3 months, would that give you a renewed confidence? Would you do absolutely everything in your power to find properties? You know, it gives you so much confidence then, whether you're talking to the letting agent, to a landlord. I am looking for properties for these guys that are coming in X number of weeks, and this is how we do it. So that's another really fantastic confidence way. You've suddenly got these bookings, and I know people who have literally gone out and found, you know, properties for 30, 50 people that are coming in a few weeks. So amazing. Imagine that. And people always say, oh yeah, I can't find anything. And it's like, well, have you visited all the sites? No, not yet. So you've got to tick off all these things, guys. If you really want this, if your goal, and if you have a goal, if you haven't got a goal, get one and write it down every day. But if you want to hit your goal, we've got to be ticking off every single different thing that we need to do to get us there. So that's the second hack, is visiting development sites. And then the third hack is just, I call it kind of like the franchise model. And this is really just how you describe your business. So inherently what we tend to all do is, it's like, oh, you know, the letting agent, for instance, are kind of like, you know, well, where's your website? What are you doing? How long has this been going on for? And you're just there going, oh my goodness, let me just dig a hole and jump in, because I've got no experience. I've never done this before. I haven't got a website. I haven't got all of these things. Don't worry. Are there people out there who have franchises, and they are completely starting afresh, aren't they? They're starting a brand new business, brand new limited company, probably not yet got their website up and running, all of these things. So what I tend to say is, I'm part of a really successful accommodation providers group. And this is, and I would say this because I am part of like the Touchstone community. So I'm part of, you know, I've had training, I've done courses, I've got support and mentorship. You know, daily I'm able, you know, well, I'm a coach now, but, you know, daily I have people asking me questions. So therefore, are you going through training? Now, do franchise people go through training? Absolutely. You know, you might start, I don't know, a Dunkin' Donuts business, and you had no experience of donuts before. So you're learning all about it. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have a successful business. You know, you've kind of bought into that. So for you to say, look, I'm part of this really successful accommodation providers group, I'm going through a lot of training and support, and it has been highlighted, or we have worked out that this area, so let's say we're in Bedford, again, I haven't done my due diligence on Bedford, but this area, Bedford, is really fantastic for requiring accommodation. There's a lot of contractors coming in who really, really need it. So I've been brought in to start up the business here. So I'm literally we've just set up my new limited company, where our website is under construction, and we're literally going out there and getting, as soon as we can, we're going to be purchasing property, but we need to rent property as well to honor the bookings that are out there. So again, how does that make you feel? So suddenly, rather than being in this position where it's like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. No, I haven't got a website. No, I haven't got this. It's actually great. You know, it's great because you are being educated. You've got this support network. You've got all these people that can support you. And also, if they then ask you a question, you can say, oh, that's really interesting. Do you know what? I haven't quite got the answer to that at the moment, but let me go away and double check. And then you're not looking like a fool. You literally are, you're in this training. And of course, then you're not going to know everything. That just really enables you to go away and get into that WhatsApp group or that Facebook group or whatever it is, to get the answers that you might need. But that, again, to me was a real confidence giver. So those 3 confidence hacks were going into the estate agent and then moving into the letting agent, visiting, say, development sites and getting a booking up front. And then I call it the franchise model hack, where you go in as if if you're doing training and all of those kind of things, you are part of a really successful group, and you have, through training, chosen that particular area to honor all the bookings that are coming in, because again, you've checked that there's massive demand and that it's not oversaturated as well. So those are kind of really great ones. And then I know we've got lots of questions, so I'm going to come to those. And then basically be everywhere. As I said, go and find all of those, all of those podcasts, all of those Facebook groups. So, for instance, Serviced Accommodation Network UK is a massive one. Join any of your local groups. So really look for, like, Bedford, WhatsApp serviced accommodation providers group. Those are really important. Just absolutely get out there, get networking, and see what you can do. I mean, there's some really great podcast. So for instance, Serviced Accommodation Secrets by Sally Kemba, was her a number of years ago, starting right from the beginning. Awesome. It's although it's a few years old, it's absolutely brilliant. What are some other ones? There's another really great one. It's called Serviced Accommodation. Oh, it's just called something Serviced Accommodation, but that's another really good one to go and get. So again, just get out there, speak to everyone, be present, and just become a real expert. And then finally, when looking for rent to rents, I would highly recommend that you fish in a pond where no one else is fishing. And again, in my YouTube, if you go back a few, there is another session that I did, which was all about fishing in a pond where no one else is fishing. And this can be relevant to whether you're doing serviced accommodation or whether you're doing kind of anything really. Let me just copy that and I can put it into the chat. And again, it's just being really creative about what you're where you're trying to find things, because if you're looking where everyone else is looking, it's going to be more challenging. But there are things like, obviously, spare room, even though it's not HMOs. Guess what? HMO landlords often have buy to lets, or it might be a small minimo or whatever. Go and find it there. Property filter, it's quite expensive, but you can get 15 days free. They have a specific rent to rent part in there. In fact, I did some work on it beforehand, and in the place that I did, which was, I can't remember, let's have a quick look, whichever area I did it in. Oh, it was Bedford. That's why I'm talking about it. There's 10 properties that have had their rent reduced or come back on the market. So they may be, and these are mainly open rent. So these are people that could potentially, or letting agents could potentially, or landlords could potentially be wanting to rent to you because they've been having some hassles. So I hope that, guys, was a little bit was really helpful, just to give you those little hacks that don't take much but can actually make such a big difference to your journey, to really understand what you are looking for. So what I'm going to do then is just have a quick look at these questions. Okay, so we've got Stephanie who said, question from me, Emma. I have one rent to SA in an area and it works really well. Fantastic. However, I'm struggling to get more as there aren't many houses in the area. The demand for residential properties is high. So absolutely, Stephanie, that's really huge, isn't it? Especially at the moment, there is massive kind of demand for just straightforward rental properties. So especially with the letting agents, they are, they often don't even have to do any work, do they? So they're inherently going to be lazy. So remember that we have to, so remember those two sheets that I spoke about where we have letting agents problems and landlord problems. And that's where we need to start being creative. So there are in your area, Stephanie, 100% landlords that have had or are having problems. Now, their problem might be the letting agent. I mean, how many landlords moan about how rubbish their particular letting agent is? Not saying that all of them are, but there are a lot out there that are not doing a great job. You can help them. Have you been out networking? So I'm now just throwing out some ideas where you can fish in a pond where perhaps no one else is fishing. So rather than just going, I'm not saying, so go to all the property networking groups, but also start networking in the business groups, especially the kind of bigger, what I would call groups where bigger businesses are going, startups less so. But generally, what do successful business owners have? They have property. So you can start talking to them. An amazing place to go, but prepare yourselves, is the NRLA, National Residential Landlords Association meetings. Now, be aware, if you're used to going to the normal, property networking, we're all really upbeat and we're all really positive, and it doesn't matter if we have issues, we all find a solution. But in the NRLA, they are literally so depressed and they're, oh, it's so terrible, and we're so attacked by the government, and those are great places because you can chat to them about what you do, what you offer. And again, it's all about building relationships. Don't go and say, I want your property, I can do this. It's all about building relationships. But those are great places where you'll find landlords that have major problems and have issues, and you can help them. Also, who is your current one that you rent now? Does that landlord have more? Do they have landlord friends? Because generally birds of a feather flock together. So I hope that kind of gives you a few ideas, Stephanie, of kind of where to go. But what we've got to do is, I know that there's a need, so I need to go out and find those properties. Where else can I find it? And that literally means by going to different places, not necessarily on Rightmove and Zoopla. Okay, tips for targeting longer corporate stays versus visitors staying for a couple of nights. So firstly, Daniel, obviously the goldmine area is really key to make sure there is demand. And then there is a really fantastic book actually by a lady called Amelia Makosa, M-A, let me write that down. It's quite an old book, and annoyingly, she wrote the date on it, which was 2020. But Amelia Makosa, and it's, if you just look at it, it's something like 2020 serviced accommodation. That is really good for corporates, and it really talks about how you need to do a much more kind of luxury like a leaflet, it's not a leaflet, isn't it, like little book. You need to specifically go and find those companies that have people regularly coming in and out. I mean, the great one for those as well, Daniel, is if you've got any companies that have just moved to the area, they've moved their head offices, those are great as well. I would, so those to me are really, really good ways of doing it, is to look at that book. That's got loads of things in there. Ravi has said, I'm struggling with cleaners. Never, Ravi. Never. We never have problems with cleaners. Joke. Yeah, it is the bane of our lives, is it? I keep getting bad reviews. That is no good. I've highlighted this and various issues to current cleaners. I've gone through about 4 cleaners. Cleaners in London are expensive. Okay, Ravi. So to me, it is all about being very specific, but making it as easy as possible for them. So you really need to, you know, see their cleaning and understand that they are doing the type of clean that you need. Now, not any, you know, sometimes just certain cleaners are just never going to be up to the standard. And then sometimes we have these big long lists and these tick lists, and inherently they just want to get cleaning. But what we need to do is make it a joint thing. So, you know, you could maybe offer, you know, incentives, make them really part of your kind of results. You know, if we get a 10-star review, perhaps you'll give them a voucher. I don't know, whatever it is. But inherently, if you've got a rubbish cleaner, they're always going to be rubbish. I mean, I used to have 6 cleaning companies. So I'd have 2 main ones. And then inherently, middle of August, somebody would be sick. 3 of them would be on holiday. And I'd get down to this one lady who honestly was rubbish. She was so rubbish. And no matter what we said, how we explained it, she was just rubbish. But she would be okay for that one clean after a really good clean. But she wasn't somebody that we could keep going with. So it's about putting in, you know, pictures are great. Is showing pictures, reminders. So for instance, if you've got a coffee machine, if you've got a microwave, reminding them that, you know, those are the things that need to be double checked. So always have photos. We do photos and videos now. That's a really, really helpful, especially we had somebody who said that the room was really dirty, and we were able to prove with photos and with a video going really close up into our fridge, you know, into the microwave. So we had the proof that it was sparklingly clean. So yeah, so that's good. And then I always use photos and you know, and videos to enable, well, not me, but to enable my virtual assistant to check that you've got enough knives and forks, that you've got enough plates and things like that, so that they don't have to do things like that. So it's trying to make sure that what they concentrate on is just the cleaning, and they do a good job. And I'm afraid to say, yeah, it's not easy, Ravi. There's no magic solution, but really try and work with them. If they come with really great glowing reviews, I'm sure you'll be able to work with them. And yeah, just keep trying. When do we expect, Stephanie said, when do we expect the new use class? Well, I think there is the leveling up stuff is going on at the moment, and I'm thinking that they're going to bolt it onto that. So it could be any time now, but we thought it would be before the government went on holiday, and it didn't quite go through. So, you know, let's just watch this space. No, I haven't got a crystal ball, I'm afraid. What areas in London? I don't know why. I don't know what that question is. Sorry, Omar. So Omar's also said, just out of interest, why do property investor professionals invest their time on platforms like this? Also YouTube podcasts. Omar, what's the question? I don't exactly know what that question is. Sorry. Why do property invest their time on platforms like this? I suppose it's learning. Is that what you're sort of saying? I mean, I love going on these platforms because, you know, no matter where you are in your journey, there's always things that you can learn. I mean, constantly, I'm learning all the time. I've constantly got my, you know, my phone on, whether it's a podcast or whether I'm doing book learning or YouTube. Don't tend to use YouTube as much because I don't find it that user friendly, but amazing content. Hope that's helpful. So Omar has said, I'm looking at stains for my SA business. I do know a cleaner, but not sure if you cover stains. Yep, we should chat. Awesome. Guys, this is how it happens, isn't it? Supporting each other. And that's why being in communities are really great, because you can put a note out, oh, please help me. So we have this in our local WhatsApp group in our local area. Who's got a cleaner? You know, mine's let me down, or mine's rubbish. You know, have you got cleaners that you can help? And we all recommend, because that's good, isn't it? If you've got a really great cleaning company and they want to grow, you can help them grow. So it could be really positive. Okay. Oh, so yes, so Craig has said, oh, hi, Craig. Bedford and Brighton are both on the Thameslink line into central London. Awesome. Trying to find this live on YouTube. No, it's live on, yeah, I need to work out. I'm not great with tech. I need to get my VA to help me Oh, sorry. Yeah, Dee has said go for no, absolutely. Yeah, Craig, again, just to reiterate, Craig's friend has said Harry took 57 calls before he got his first yes. So guys, you know, you just got to keep going, keep the faith and keep going. Rajiv has said, I have a potential rent to SA opportunity next door to me. Well, that is handy. But what is the best research to see if it's actually going to work in my area, as in booking demand? Perfect. Really great question. And it should be, Rajiv, the first thing that you do. So I've put in here, can you see my goldmine area? So download that and that will enable you to go through step by step. But it would be useful. There is a booking.com thing that I should do another time, which helps you. So basically you go into booking.com, you put the area, but you don't put the dates, and then it gives you the number of properties available. Then you go in, put the dates. So let's say tonight for, you know, 4 nights. So let's say you've got 100 available, and then today there's 99 still available. Do you want to compete with 99 other people that are empty? I wouldn't. But if it's, say, 20, then, you know, you might be thinking, oh, that's quite good. There's still some demand there. So that's really a really useful way of doing that. Let's have a look. Any more? Fantastic. Oh, that's nice, Dee. So brilliant session. I'm one of your mentors. That's even better. So I do that already. Cleaner sends me pictures after each clean. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, you know, they're just never going to be right, and you might have to get a new cleaner. So yeah, fantastic. Okay, guys, so I hope that's been really, really helpful. Yeah, please do share and you know, share the love on what I do, because obviously I do this all for free because I really enjoy giving. It's certainly something that I like doing. So my YouTube channel is Emma Pure Abode. So please do have a look. In fact, it's linked on here, and this will be on my YouTube channel later on today. And then what we do is I actually my fabulous team then break it into shorts as well. So we'll be breaking it into each of these areas. So then you can actually listen on a much better way, you know, just on quick ones. So that's pretty good there. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much. I will be back hopefully next week, but it might be a bit later. I've got yeah, something that I can't change, annoyingly, but I will let you know, and then yeah, look forward to seeing you all then soon. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.